opportunity of chairing this final offline session. In this session, we just have one speaker, JEET, and JEET is pursuing his PhD from Guwahati University. He works broadly around the debate on values in science. I am still looking for his. Oh, okay. He does not have it. I was just speaking from what I know about JEET's work. JEET is in third year of his PhD, and is working on the issues related to values in science. I request JEET to take stage, and we will have say 30 minutes of presentation and followed by 10 minutes of Q&A. Right? 20 minutes, is it? Okay. 20 minutes, but if you... Okay, take your... So, but try to wrap it in, say, 30 minutes. Okay, I'll give you a signal when you are approaching time. Does it work? Okay, good. Over to you.
Respected chairpersons, first of all, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to the principals for inviting me. Although I am not considering myself as a resource person, and after seeing all these delegates, I'm a little bit, nervous. Yeah. So my paper revisits the value-free ideal and seeks to embrace the view that scientific inquiry is unavoidably value-laden. Okay. So there are two prevalent views centered around the questions whether non-epistemic values such as social and ethical values can have a role in scientific inquiry. And these two prevalent views are known as the value-free. One is value-free ideal, which is the idea that scientists should not concern about the social and ethical values, at least to a large extent. And the other view is value-laden science, which is the idea that the non-epistemic values are unavoidable and they are beneficial for scientific work. But before getting into these two views, I think it's very essential to have a very brief. I think it's very essential to specify the meaning in what sense the philosopher of science using the word values. In science and value literature, the word value is used extensively, and it is one of those elusive terms that philosophers of science often struggle to define. And despite having the flourishing literature on science and values, the central concept of values still remain ambiguous. In 2024 papers, Kevin Hilliers tries to characterize those values in 4 categories. Okay, so first is, he says that values can be considered as a criteria or standard for choice. Values can just, it can, we can consider the values as a criteria. So here, under this first category, Elias put the Thomas Kuhn's work, and Thomas Kuhn also considered the values as a criteria for choice. And Thomas Kuhn lists 5 characteristics of sound science. One is accuracy, then broad scope, consistency, fruitfulness, and simplicity. And this similar view can also be found in Hugh Lacey's work. He said that values are attributes of an object that are considered to be the criteria for referencing its values. And it's also found, this kind of work is also found in Elizabeth Anderson's work. The second category is values as a causal factor. So here suggests that the values sometimes function as an element that causally impact decisions, habit, and practices. And the similar view is also found in Joe's work. Joe suggests that values are a decision vector. It's just like factors that play a causal role in scientific decision making. And the third category is values are the beliefs or attitude towards something which is desirable. So here Elias evokes the name of either Douglas and Matthew Brown. Matthew Brown says that all our activities and practice are resolving around the central points of values. Like he says, if I ask you, why do you drink dried soda? Perhaps you might answer these questions with a bunch of justification that it is contain no calories, or it's like you are concentrating on losing your weight, or it seems like the diet soda tastes almost the same as regular soda. So all these explanations specifically pertaining to what we value. All these explanations includes values pertaining to health. And Heather Douglas, in her 2009 book Science, Policy and Value Free Ideal, he considered values as a belief or attitude about what is preferable, what is desirable, and what should be the center for our decision making. The fourth category is the values as desired things. So, and here Elias thought that his understanding of values could be put in the third category. So values is not like belief or thoughts, but rather the desired object and so on. So, but here one thing we should keep in mind that Elias highlights the blurry distinctions between these four categories of values. For instance, if we consider values as a criteria, then it frequently encompasses belief regarding what is desirable. So this distinction is very blurry. And one other thing is also important, that different conceptions, we will be talking about the value-free ideal, and here one thing we should keep in mind that different conceptions of value-free, different conceptions of value give rise to the different interpretations of value-free ideal. Now I would like to discuss the nature of scientific knowledge, and then we will see the relation between values and scientific knowledge. So why do you value science, or why do you value scientific knowledge? We value science because we know the scientific inferences are based on facts and evidence. Scientific research is critical. Scientists are debating all the time, over many different aspects of doing science, and there is no claim about the critical framework permanently in science. Scientific community is open to all. If anybody wants to be a scientist, then he or she must come to the scientific community. So another thing, the scientific claims are revisable. So and it's revisable, and scientific claims are always based on the new evidences. There is new method of gathering evidences. So no dogmatic attitude can be entertained in science. So one other thing is that we know the science, we do not find so much uncertainty in scientific reasoning, because there are always the uncertainty, and there is always an ongoing uncertainty in science which generates the reliability. Though science is uncertain, but still science is considered to be the best source of knowledge. So for now. So now I'm looking the second part of this paper is the value-free ideal in science. And this understanding of science as an empirical epistemic enterprise paves the way for the value-free ideal. The value-free ideal which has attracted lots of attention in last few years. And in order to define the value-free ideal, Heather Douglas states, the value-free ideal of science is best described as an ideal that is based around the claim that social, ethical, and political values should have no influence over the reasoning of scientists, and that scientists should proceed in their work with as little concern as possible for such values. So, value-free ideal requires that no non-epistemic values such as social and ethical values be involved in internal studies of science. So here I would like to talk about what is internal studies of science and what is external studies of science. External studies of science are the earlier stages of science. External studies of science involves the process of selecting the research problem, the process of selecting a particular research methodology. In value-free, the proponent of value-free ideal says that social and ethical values as well as the cognitive values, both this kind of values play their role in external stages of science. But the internal stages of science, which is the later stages of science, is the process of testing the hypothesis, interpreting the result. In the internal stages of science, social and ethical values have no role to play. So, value-free ideals are trying to make a distinction between the internal stages of science and the external stages of science, and they are trying to make a distinction that epistemic values and non-epistemic values both play a role in external stages of science, though they do not play a role in internal stages of science. So, what value-free ideal tries to show that the value-freeness is the characteristic that the ideal defines. If any piece of scientific work that is perfectly objective must be value-free, at least to a large extent. In other words, objectivity is one epistemic goal that all scientific activities should strive for, and in order to do so, it must be highly value-free. So, we can the claim of the value-free ideal, we can put it like VFI. Non-epistemic values should not be given any internal role in scientific practice. Okay. So, what are the reasons for value-free ideal? First reason is that, which is given by McMullen. McMullen says the non-epistemic values distract the scientist from the primary scientific goal of pursuing truth about the world. Like Daniel Sim says that non-epistemic values are neither constitutive of truth, nor helpful for promoting the attainment of truth. So that is, if that is the case, then this non-epistemic value seems usually help to accomplishing the fundamental scientific goal of pursuing the truth. Second reason is that, so first reason is that non-epistemic values distract the scientists from pursuing their scientific work. Second reason is that we need to protect the autonomy of decision makers, and this and one can apply this reasoning both at the individual and political level also. Here, Parker and Greg Lux illustrated this worry by describing a scenario. In a scenario in which a local municipality needs to make decisions about its future water supply. Here, one can imagine that the local municipality might contract with the climate service organizations about their future water availability. If the scientists at the climate service organizations made their judgment that did not match with the value of municipal leaders, like if the municipal leaders were concerned about the worst case scenario, whereas the scientists were not. So this could hamper their decision makings. So keeping this kind of scenarios in mind, scientists should avoid making a value judgment, so they can ensure their claims that are useful for all decision makers regardless of their values. And so the distinction between the scientist and the decision maker marks a broader distinction, because the scientists have to make a value-driven judgment. They have to make projecting the amount of rainfall, setting up the hydrological model, combining information from multiple models and creating uncertain estimates. The third reason for keeping value out of scientific work is to preserve the public trust. So, in order to use science to improve the society, it is very crucial that science can be trusted. So, if people find that scientists are motivated by social and ethical values, then that might create a problem for the scientist. Proctor was one of the most famous philosophers of science. He said that by separating science from values, reliability, credibility, and the authority of scientific work could be protected. And Thomas Kuhn also talks about that scientists should work in a isolated paradigm, and they should not concern about the social and ethical values. Other thinker is important in this regard is Reichenbach, who says that who make a distinction between ethics and knowledge, and he declares a modern analysis of knowledge makes a cognitive ethics impossible. So according to Reichenbach, ethics is normative, knowledge is descriptive. So these two have nothing in common. And in recent time, Lacey is one of the most famous who support this value-free ideal. And his book is Science Value-Free. He argues vigorously in favor of the value-free ideal that defines as at the heart of the science. So I'm moving to the criticism of the value-free ideal. Heather Douglas argued that the VFI is simply a bad idea because it limits science potential to contribute meaningfully to the society and ignores the ethical dimensions inherent in scientific inquiry. She thinks that this value-free ideal is not only unrealistic but it also counterproductive to the goal of science. So according to her, the value-free ideal is based on at least one distinction for values in science, that is epistemic and non-epistemic values. So what are these epistemic and non-epistemic values? Epistemic values are those values that promote the attainment of truth. These values constitute an attainment of or is necessary for truth. These epistemic values intimately bound up with the very concept of truth itself. And Daniel Fields also make a distinction between intrinsic epistemic values and extrinsic epistemic values. Intrinsic epistemic values are definitional of what truth requires. He says that intrinsic, for example, intrinsic epistemic values are internal consistency and empirical adequacy. These are two examples of intrinsic epistemic values. Whereas the extrinsic epistemic values promote the attainment of truth, but they are not themselves the indicator of the truth. So what are those extrinsic epistemic values? He says that extrinsic epistemic values are simplicity, external consistency, traceability, etc. So, and the list of the Heather Douglas has given a list of epistemic values. First is simplicity. We know that the complex theories can be more challenging, to work, and we know that the more complex a theory, the more hidden assumptions or dependency it may contain, and that may be difficult to unpack the implications. Explanatory. Second is explanatory power. Scientific theory that has a greater explanatory power can explain a large phenomena. Okay, so if a theory has a greater explanatory power, then that would be considered most fruitful. Then scope, a scientific theory that has a broad scope that can be applied across a range of phenomena, enabling the scientists to test their theories in a more diverse context. And there are other like consistency, predictive precision, and second is the non-cognitive values. Non-cognitive values includes the social values, ethical values, and aesthetic values also. So, what are the arguments against the value-free ideal? There are many arguments against the value-free ideal. The first argument is gap argument, which is also known as the argument from underdeterminations. Like and helium longitude is one of the most influential proponent of this gap argument. What gap argument shows? Gap argument says that there is an unavoidable logical gap between the scientific theories and the evidences. And Longino says that the evidences that scientists have in their hand are not sufficient to make the conclusions. There always lies a background assumptions, and those background assumptions are somewhat value-laden. And she has given the examples. Then second argument is so the error arguments, and it's also the argument from inductive breaks. Argument from inductive breaks. So what argument? What it shows that it shows that scientists always face the problem of inductive gap because scientists do not have Cartesian certainty. Scientists do not have the Cartesian certainty because of this uncertainty, every scientific assertion involves inductive gap and carries an inductive breaks. Inductive gap is a gap between the scientific evidences and the theories, and inductive breaks is the breaks of drawing conclusions based on the gathered evidences. It's just like the problem of inductions. And here Douglas revisited some of the most famous philosophers like Hempel and Richard Rubner. Richard Rubner says that scientists face the problem of these inductive risks when they accept or reject the hypothesis. And scientists do make the value judgment while accepting or rejecting the hypothesis. Then Hempel also says that these values act as presuppositions because when scientists face this problem, like if scientists always face the problem of two kinds of error. One is the false positive, another is the false negative. False positive is scientists are accepting something as true, but in fact it is false. It's a false positive. And the false negative is scientists are rejecting an hypothesis according to the rule, but is in fact turns out as true. So these two, due to these two problems of false positive and false negative, scientists need to concern about the social and ethical values in the world. So to conclude my paper, it's like the rejection of the value-free idea in science remains pivotal in the literature of philosophy of science. And the scientists must somewhat be flexible in determining how much evidence is necessary for a claim because societal significance of decision making as well as the varying risks of inaccuracy across the topics and context. So, and to say that science is need to be based on the values. And Douglas insisted that values become less important when remaining uncertainty is low, and scientists think that there is almost no possibility of making mistakes. Thank you. Would I take any suggestions or questions?
Yeah, we'll invite the questions. Thank you for the presentation. We concluded within 25 minutes, so we have some time for questions.
Yeah, I first congratulate you for taking up this subject, but I'm very concerned about the research involving human subjects. Think of the human subjects who are prisoners, and if there is no ethical norm, you know what had happened post-war situation in the Nazi concentration camp and in the Europe. We all know about it. And also, currently, for all experiments involving human subjects and also animals, there is ethics committee for the human as well as animal ethics committee for involving animals, and you know that experimentation on many animals have been banned. Now, please try, or I don't know whether you have already considered this issue, that how the model changes when you involve human subjects in this model. Because human subjects each, I would also like to know more about what cognitive aspect you are talking about. Because if you do not consider the cognitive and emotional aspect of the human subject, then it's going to be devastating. Right? So this is a threat to the human life. So if it is already considered, I would like to know, and if you have not considered, I would like you to incorporate this in your case.
I will definitely incorporate it.
Can I make one observation? My observation is that when we talk about values, for instance, I think there are other values, in the sense that values of fulfillment for human rights, values of enterprise and creation, values of well-being, values of self-expression. So where, when you talk about scientific knowledge, where do you locate that? I would like to tell you, suggest you one or two books of W.H. Berkmeister, William Henry Berkmeister, W-E-R-K-M-E-I-S-T-E-R. And just maybe 3 or 4 big books in it. But it's about values and human behavior. Other one is structural spectrum of values. There are 3 or 4 books there. And the books are actually very, very wonderful. I have read the book some 25 years back. So I would suggest you maybe to read one or two books of Berkmeister, and then you can re-modify your proposal to be a better way.
As part of suggestion, have you come across the book of Professor Alan Sharma? Okay, you can read that. This title of the book, What is this thing called science? Philosophy of science, okay? One suggestion.
Sir, perhaps I agree. What is this thing called?
Yeah, what is this thing called science? Alan Sharma from the University of Sydney. After like Popper or Thomas Kuhn and Mary Lakatos and Alan Sharma, these are well-known philosophers of science.
Other questions or suggestions from the audience? In that case, thanks a lot, Jeet, for your presentation, and thanks a lot to the resource persons for the valuable suggestions. I conclude this session there, and I think this
Sir, for this nice chairing the session. Now, may I request again Chairperson Abhishek Kashyap sir to distribute certificate to the research scholar, speaker of this second session, JEET GHOSH, with a certificate and a token of love from the organizer.
and I think this